Hi guys, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you very much for joining me. Our national parks are a place that many people enjoy going for a family vacation. You wouldn't think about your safety or your family's safety or your children's safety when visiting the parks. According to a 2017 statistic, it said that more than 600,000 people go missing in the United States every year in all kinds of circumstances. Around 90% of these missing people are recovered annually, both dead and alive. But according to David Paulies, the author of the Missing 411 books, estimates that there are over 1,600 unexplained disappearances in North America. On the list of parks and their dangers, the Grand Canyon is number one, with most fatalities either being health-related or from falls. Neither of the two parks, like Yosemite, they also have either falls or health-related heart attacks, things like that, as cause of death, but neither of them have had any deaths related to the animals that people might encounter. The Great Smoky Mountains in North Carolina and Tennessee, most of the cause of death was traffic-related. The second cause was health-related. Heart attacks, things like that. Number 4 on the list is Sequoia and King Canyon there in California. Majority of the deaths there, the number 1 cause was from falls. And the second reason would be, again, health related. Number 5 on the list of the most dangerous parks to visit is Yellowstone. Number 1 cause of death there is traffic accidents. Number 2 is health-related deaths. And number 3 is killed by wild animals. Supposedly, since the 1800s, there has only been 8 people killed there at Yellowstone by grizzlies. On the list of the most dangerous parks in the country, a total number of 54, Yellowstone is number 1 with cause of death by animals. Grizzly bear, some type of bear, maybe a buffalo. It even tops Alaska, which is known for all the wildlife that it has. It tops Alaska for the number of deaths that have happened there in their parks. This year alone, there's been at least 2 deaths, possibly 3, from people who were killed with their encounters with grizzly bears. The latest deaths were Charles Mock. He was 40 years old. He lived in the park there at the Gateway community of West Yellowstone. The Yellowstone region of Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming is home to more than 700 grizzly bears. They say that fatal attacks on humans are relatively rare, but have increased as the grizzly population has grown and more people moved into rural areas near the bear habitat. Since 2010, grizzlies in the Yellowstone region have killed at least 8 people, including Mock. 3 people have died inside the park. And they will claim that Mock's death was the last death since 2018, when a hunting guide and his client were attacked in Wyoming, and the guide was killed. The other person that was killed this year was Craig Clowder, 40, of Livingston. The Montana Fish and Wildlife officials have now warned people to protect themselves from grizzly bears. They're starting to wake up from hibernation. Typically, you'll see males emerging from their dens in March, and then the females with their cubs will typically come out in May and April. Grizzly waking up from a long sleep will try to feed on dead animal carcasses that they find, like elk and bison. Their natural food of cutthroat trout has been decimated over the years because the lake trout, an invasive species of trout, has been eating the young. And I believe it was last year or the year before when they were doing the counts of the trout that go up the streams to lay their eggs, there was 0. The cutthroat trout is the only fish that goes up the streams to lay their eggs. The natural diet of Yellowstone's grizzly consists largely of pine seeds and 3 other foods: the spawning cutthroat, and army cutworm moths, and, bison and elk that they may find. The elk population has been decimated over the years because the young babies being born at this time are easy prey for the grizzlies. So the elk population is also dropping there in Yellowstone. The battle to save the Yellowstone cutthroat trout has been going on for years, and it looks like they finally lost the battle. The lake trout do not travel up the streams. They stay in deep water, so the grizzlies can't catch them. The other type of food that the grizzlies depend upon is the white bark pine nuts. But these trees that have been known to live to be about 1,000 years old are also dying off. The die-off has been significant. Infections of white pine blister rust has weakened the plants, which made them more susceptible to beetles. So their 2 main sources of food is basically gone for the grizzlies. The white bark pine seeds are a rich source of fat for bears during the time of period when they're putting on weight for hibernation. It used to be that a typical tree would produce between 13 and 23 cones every year. But in 2019, they found that the trees that were remaining were only producing between 6 and 9 cones per year. That was the lowest cone production since they started watching it as of 2019 in over 33 years. As for their 3rd source of food, which would be the elk, the number that are of age to produce babies has dropped dramatically, which means there's less babies being born that the grizzly can hunt as an alternative source of food. Here we have an image of the tree die-off as of 2010. Yeah, the red being very severe. Yellow, let me bring it down here. Multiple spots of outbreak. Let's see here. And then occasional red trees. I've talked about how a lot of these trees are also dying because of the gases coming up. So you got the gases coming up from the volcano as it recharges. You got the rust that's weakening them. And then you also got the beetles that are killing them off. Now this is from 2010. They also say that grizzly bear deaths have increased dramatically since 2000, far in excess of anything that can be explained by changes in population size. The bear deaths surged after they found out that they lost most of the white bark pine, a source of seeds that had been, and in some places, a staple of the Yellowstone bears. Over 70% of Greater Yellowstone's white bark pine have been killed in just 10 years. Resourceful bears have been compensating for the loss of pine seeds by foraging more widely and seeking out other high-calorie foods, largely in the form of meat. Bears are increasingly predatory on cows and scavenging elk meat left by hunters. Today, conflicts with hunters and livestock producers have replaced conflicts over garbage as a leading killer of grizzlies. Here's an article from 2020 that 2 grizzly bears were killed after conflicts near Yellowstone. It just wasn't getting into garbage. They were breaking into houses, entering campgrounds. There was another report where a woman was dragged out of her tent while sleeping and killed. That was posted on July of 2021. Here's another article about it. It says during the attack, her fellow campers used bear spray to force the animal out of their campsite. It said there was another report where a grizzly broke into a chicken coop and killed and ate several chickens on the same night. They need about 4,000 plus calories a day. Again, the National Park Service downplayed it. It says over the last 20 years there have been 2 other incidences, according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is bunk. March 5th of 2012, I'm just going to jump around to the different reports that I found from people dying from grizzly. Michigan man fatally mauled by grizzly in Yellowstone National Park tried to defend himself. This man evidently wasn't even reported missing, says the attack occurred in an area of mixed lodgepole pines, meadows, and rolling hills that the trail passes through. A father and daughter on a hiking trail the following day found his body, which had been cached under duff and debris. A common practice of bears intended to return to the kill and feed. Well, it looks like humans are now on their list to substitute the fish and, the pine cones that they normally eat upon, or the elk. When the daughter got closer to the body, she realized there was boots sticking out, legs, and the upper part of a body covered with dirt. The unidentified woman continued. Yeah, the bear tried to hide its meal. The attack was the second fatal mauling in the park last year and marked the first time anyone could recall 2 fatal maulings in 1 year in Yellowstone. They just don't tell people about it. Nearly 2 months earlier, another visitor from Torrance, California, was out for an early morning walk with his wife near Canyon Village. This is within the park, when he was run down and killed by a sow grizzly that investigators determined was exhibiting normal defensive behavior. The presence of a bloody adult and a cub track suggested that the adult female that killed the man and one of her offsprings were likely involved in the consumption of Mr. Wallace's body. Here's an article from 2011. They say it was the first fatal attack in the park in 25 years. Again, bunk. In June 2010, a grizzly just released after being tranquilized for study killed an Illinois man hiking outside of the Yellowstone's East Gate. Last July, another grizzly killed a Michigan man and injured 2 others in a nighttime campground attack near Cook City, Montana, northeast of the park. And earlier this year, a female grizzly injured 2 people hiking in the Gallatin National Park north of Big Sky, Montana. These attacks are growing. On the March death of Craig Clowder, they continue to say that since 2010, only 8 people have been killed by grizzlies there in Yellowstone. 2016, July, there was 2 people, I believe, on a bike run there, and supposedly he ran into a grizzly and the grizzly killed him. Brad Treat, 38, of West Glacier, was killed while mountain biking on the Green Gate Half Moon Trail system. Wildlife Response Team investigator said he believed that Treat was riding at a high rate of speed on a narrow trail when he collided with the bear that then attacked him. Sight visibility at the location of the collision is very limited, and the collision was unavoidable, according to FWP officials. Treat was a law enforcement officer with the U.S. Forest Service in the Hungry Horse District and was pronounced dead at the scene. In the fall of 2015, a black bear fatally attacked an elderly woman in her home near Kalispell. She died from her injuries she suffered during a black bear attack on September 27th. She was evidently leaving food outside for the bears. Now here it says, if the attacking bear is identified as a grizzly, it'd be for the first fatal attack in northwestern Montana since 2001. In 2001, an elk hunter was killed on the Blackfoot Clearwater Game Range near Ovando. Grizzly bear attacks are rare in the Glacier region, but not unheard of. Since Glacier National Park was created in 1910, there has been 10 fatal grizzly attacks in the national park. The most recent was May of 1998, when a 26-year-old man was killed hiking in the upper Two Medicine Valley. They keep downplaying this. August of 2015, a hiker was found dead in Yellowstone, apparently from a grizzly bear attack. The victim was 63-year-old Lance Crosby from Billings, Montana. Crosby was a longtime employee at the medical clinics inside the park. He had worked and lived in Yellowstone for 5 summers and was an experienced hiker. This makes the story all more puzzling. Crosby was aware of the danger in the backcountry. Against safe hiking protocol, he was hiking alone and without bear spray when he was killed. Well, they never found it, so they assume he didn't have it, but that doesn't mean he didn't have it. There's also speculation that he was jogging. Running from a bear can trigger an attack. They're hungry, they're starving. Humans are the new food. Crosby's body was found partially consumed and covered so they can come back later and eat some more. Partial tracks at the scene indicated that a female grizzly and at least one cub were at the scene and likely involved in the attack. Another one from 2018. I think this is the one where it took him 2 hours to get to when the friend he was with called 911. Guide Mark Uptain, 37, and his client came back to the site of an elk kill Friday morning in the Teton Wilderness. He was a bow hunter and shot the elk Thursday, but he and Uptain were unable to find the animal at the time. The pair located the carcass and prepared to remove it when they were charged by 2 bears. You know, many of these people that have been killed are experienced trackers, guides, policemen, hunters. They're very familiar with the dangers of the area. Now, these are experienced people going out in the wilderness. People sleeping in their tents who are being attacked. What about the average unexperienced camper, the family man, the wife, the children, etc.? His friend evidently was also injured. He had injuries to his chest and arm and head. And it says here it took 2 hours by helicopter to reach the spot where Chubong called 911 from a mountain peak in the Teton Wilderness. By the time authorities reached the peak, it was getting dark and they were unable to search at length for Uptain. An empty can of bear spray was found with the safety removed 5 yards from Uptain's bottle. Vertical blood streaked down his neck and shoulders and into his beard from the wound on his head indicated that he was upright at some point while bleeding. In that case, they caught a male cub and a female who was shot at the attack scene, and law enforcement stated that she charged them aggressively. Yeah, they're not afraid of people. May of last year, a visitor to Yellowstone National Park receives injuries from a grizzly bear while hiking alone. Park officials say the 39-year-old who had not been identified was hiking on Beaver Ponds Trail near Mammoth Hot Springs. The attack occurred approximately 1.5 miles from the trailhead that originates from the Old Gardner Road, according to the park news release. The man told park rangers he encountered what he believed to be 2 grizzly bears. One of the bears apparently attacked the man, and he sustained injuries to his lower extremities. The injuries, however, were not extreme, and the man was able to hike out on his own. Another article from last year, April. A grizzly bear was shot and killed Friday by the Montana Fish and Wildlife staff investigating the scene of a bear attack that happened Thursday near West Yellowstone. Thursday's attack involved a 40-year-old West Yellowstone man who was mauled just south of Baker's Hole Campground, about 3 miles north of West Yellowstone. He was transported to Idaho Falls for treatment of several injuries and remains in serious condition Friday. A group of 7 investigators, including FWP, game wardens, and bear specialists, as well as Forest Service personnel, revisited the site Friday to assess the ongoing public safety risk. They yelled and made continuous noise as they walked towards the site to haze away any bears in the area. Before they reached the site, a bear began charging the group. Despite multiple attempts by all 7 people to haze away the bear, it continued to charge. Due to its immediate safety risk, the bear was shot and died about 20 yards from the group. The bear was an older age male grizzly. Also last year, over Labor Day weekend, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Park officials had to euthanize 4 grizzly bears in Polebridge. FWP had received numerous reports of the female adult grizzly and her 3 yearlings breaking into structures and vehicles. Officials say the bears grew increasingly comfortable around residents and people in the area, which is behavior that cannot be tolerated due to public safety risks. These bears are starving and humans are their latest food. This also is from last year, near Red Lodge, Montana. I do the earthquakes, from that location. Custer National Forest is recommending that people avoid Line Creek Trail outside of Red Lodge after a hunter was bluff charged by a grizzly bear on Sunday. The bear likely was guarding a food cache, possibly an elk carcass. And then there was a video that was posted a couple days ago of an elk slamming into the side of a moving car as it was running from wolves that were chasing it. Here's a still of the elk just before it hit the car. There's all kinds of traffic on the road. The elk ends up in the road behind the car, and the wolves attack it. They didn't care about the traffic, nothing. They were just out to get food. These predators are getting where they're not afraid of people. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What are your thoughts? Put those comments down below. Please stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.